Morning, everybody.
Morning, John.
Hi,
Yeah,
John. All right.
I got one at 1:30. And I don't know if Mr. Pinson has left yet. I don't think that he has. Um, if he happens to get here while I'm gone from home confinement, can you do his case now? Everything's already in there and updated. Confinement is gold kind of funny because he
All right.
wants
Well, why don't we get
his
started?
gold
You have
tired.
somebody that's
On paper.
that can mute yourself.
He has all the money he needs. Well, actually, his
Jonathan, can you mute?
yeah, I'm working on it.
is to settle with them for like cash, settle his restitution for like a small portion of what he owes, and then get.
There you
There
go,
you
John.
there you go. All right. Well, good morning to everyone. I'm glad to have you with us this morning um, here on the Kanawha Community Reentry Council. Here, as you all know, we meet on the second Wednesday of each month and at 10 a.m. Glad to have you all with us. Um, and I just see that Kenny Matthews is with us. He's going to assist me on this. Um, as the agenda showed, we're going to look at some of the legislation that's being considered that affects the reentry community and see where they're moving right now. I'm going to have Kenny because Kenny, some of you all know Kenneth is in the at the Capitol building virtually every day during the session with his work that he does, and I'm up there as well. But I can't say that I keep in touch with everything that's going on, but I do have knowledge of some of the important legislation that's going on. Um, but but in any case, I think we can get started. I I do want to let you know, I am trying to assist some people, um, and it's just becoming, seems more and more difficult. Um, every day we go through, people getting out and trying to get assistance. But I got a young man coming out in April, and again, he's having some problems with getting a home plan. Um, and he's been in for quite a bit. He is a sex offender, and he will have to report. But in any case, I may be calling on some to see if there's any way that they may be able to either refer me to some places or they themselves might be able to assist. He does have substance abuse issues, and uh, we're trying to see his family would like to see if he can be somewhere close to Charleston, but um, if he has to get into a place that might be further away, I guess they're willing to do that. Um, but anyway, it's just becoming so difficult finding places that will be acceptable to parole officers and so forth. So, um, but in any case,
Hey, John, can I say something?
yes, that'd be good, Jonathan.
Uh, Sex offenders are the hardest demographic to find housing for.
Right,
And a lot of it is because uh, say the place they're going to is a certain distance to schools.
right,
They're not allowed to be in that area.
right,
Uh, and then a lot of people, and then like say if they go to a shelter, does that shelter have a program for children? Then that stops them from going there.
right,
And I mean, I have on my Getting Out app, I have probably at least, I'll say at least 30 people who are sex offenders that I can't find housing for.
right.
There's not a lot of transitional housing, for sex offenders.
Yeah,
And the ones that I do find are so backed up that it's like there was one guy who they told me he would have to be on the waiting list for at least 5 months.
yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah, I've been in touch with a lot of these places as well. There's a place down in near the Bluefield area. Um and then there's a place actually in Shillian. Some of you may be aware of Circle of Care.
Yeah.
I have and the issue with Circle of Care, there's no issue with Circle of Care, but I had two guys that I was trying to get into Circle of Care, and this was about 3 months ago, 4 months maybe, and they were willing to accept them, but then the parole officer said no.
Because of
Uh,
the VAR
Be-
certification.
No, it wasn't that. They have with our certification. The issue that I was told is that and I don't know if there's anyone on here that can address this more. But the issue was that the administrators of that program had some issues when they were administering Recovery U. Some of you all
Right.
are familiar with Recovery U. Well, the administrators from Recovery U are now the administrators of Circle of Care, and because of their record with Recovery U, they denied them in the Charleston parole. But then I found out that a parole officer up in Parkersburg sent somebody down there, and so I made a call into the Charleston parole office, wanting to know, okay, how come we have one parole officer up in another region of the state that's bringing them to Circle of Care, but you denied me twice to put somebody in there, and so the person spoke to me, said, well, every parole officer, can use their own judgment. The other issue, Jonathan, is that there is another place that I did get somebody in, and I'm thankful for that. Here in Charleston, called Shirley Temple. Um, Now, in this case, the person came in again from another probation region. Charleston will not accept any, will not approve of anyone going into Shirley Temple because they're not with our certified. Um, and that's the problem. And well, let me just say this. They have a long-term program that is certified by OFLAC. But the Charleston parole officer is saying that if they come into a 60-day program, they want something that's going to go at least 4 months. And so one part of Shirley Temple is certified by the state, but another part is not. And so they can't approve it because it's not going to be long enough. It has to be for them at least 6 months. And the Shirley Temple portion is not certified by WAVA, but other portions of the program is certified by OFLAC. So, you got these things that are creating a lot of problems, and then you have inconsistencies. But in any case, we're able to get some in and some just not.
Have
Um,
you tried Serenity Point in Williamson?
that's the one that I was talking about. I thought it was in Bluefield, but Williams, I had some that were approved by Williamson, and then the Provo officer said no. and and they're certified by they're certified by
Okay.
WFA, and so it's really kind of very frustrating because I have some guys that I'm in communication with. They have been granted parole, and they have had parole now for 4 or 5 months, and they're still in prison, um, even though they've been granted parole. So it's frustrating and it's difficult but in any case, just venting here. Um, but I wanted to have us look at some of the legislation that's that's been introduced and that's being considered. And Kenny Matthews is going to help me out. And I thought maybe we could look at, Kenny, some of the more significant ones. And I've got a list of about 9 legislations. Some are more significant than others. Um, but that jumps out at me, I think, is House Bill 5156. I'm sure you're familiar with 5156, which is the Second Look Act. It's been introduced, it seems like the last 2 or 3 years, and it's being considered this year. Last year it was not considered. Um, but it's a bill that would allow people who are incarcerated now and that will allow a person to petition a court or a judge to consider modifying the sentence. These are individuals who are serving that have a sentence that is um, more than 10 years and has served at least 10 years of the sentence. And at that point, they would be able to petition a court and have their sentence reconsidered. Kenny, I'm sure you're familiar with the bill. It's been introduced every year. It's something that is really needed because I'm dealing with individuals who are, in my opinion, and in the opinion of other attorneys, have been overcharged. And we know that it's happening, that there are a number of individuals where judges are just making an example of, or they're overcharging for whatever the reasons might be. And consequently, they're serving long sentences, and and a lot of them have changed, have legitimately been rehabilitated and show all the signs of that. And so, Kenny, I don't know if you want to speak to that. Why is it so difficult getting this bill passed or even looked at?
Yeah. So I guess, you can say like hindsight is like 2020 kind of thing with it. In 2022, I believe, going to the 23 legislative session, um, we had Charlie Trump as the Senate Judiciary President, and it might have been 23 legislative session, and he was on board with running the second look bill in the Senate and getting in the Senate Judiciary and getting some movement with it. Um, at that same time, they had four death penalty bills that were introduced in the Senate. And at that time, a couple of them, especially um, instituting the death penalty when it relates to the commissioner of homicide on the law enforcement officer, first responder, was having some real traction at that point. They were really like pushing forward with that. And so, as a coalition, we had a meeting with Charlie Trump, and he said, "I can run your second look policy bill, but then I have to run these death penalty bills that I don't want to run." And he said, "If I keep your bill off the agenda list, it'll give me ammunition to keep all these other bills off the agenda list." And so we said, "Okay, one bill to kill four, we'll do that." And unfortunately, he went to the Supreme Court here in West Virginia the following year. Um, it was no longer the Senate Judiciary President. And so we ended up with Senate Judiciary Chair uh, for for these bills that, I mean, last year we had Senator Woodrum, Senator Rucker sponsored both bills on the Senate side. We had Delegate Andy Shamblin sponsor a version of our bill. The bill that's currently in the House is a version that Delegate Kayla Young, is sponsoring.
Yeah,
So
she's usually the one sponsoring this a lot.
yeah, So we last year we thought that we would have the people in place to get the bill at least put on committee. Um, then we had Senator Stewart on Senate Judiciary Committee, and he was like, "Nope, not doing it." And then Delegate J.B. Akers on the House side, he at first it seemed like it was getting traction to where he was going to put it on the committee agenda, and then at the very end, it kind of like shut down,
Yeah.
and it was like, nope, not doing it. So it's frustrating because we're not even getting the opportunity to have a discussion about the bill.
Right.
It's just like,
Right.
no. And some of the main points of contention with it is one, that our facilities are getting overrun by people that are individuals that are in their 50s, 60s, and plus
Mm-hmm.
that have been incarcerated for decades. And the only reason why they're still there is just because they've decided that, you know, they want to live and not die, roll over and die. Like that's really the only reason. When you have geriatric wings of facilities that people need to be wheeled around in wheelchairs, you have end of life orderlies that sit with them and help the nursing staff give them sponge baths and all this other stuff that happens at St. Mary's and Mount Olive, where the two geriatric wings are. There's no reasonable sense as to why they're still incarcerated, other than just because we can.
Well, it's kind of
Which is
interesting. It's kind of interesting, Kenny, that you bring that up because there's a bill, Senate Bill 601. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. I don't know if anyone else is familiar with it, but it's called the medical
respite.
parole. Yeah,
Yeah.
and um, and I don't know if anyone else is familiar with this bill or has heard of it. It basically any inmate incarcerated in that may petition for medical parole because of terminal illness, medical incapacity, or geriatric condition. So what you're saying, right? And there's, as some of you all know, there's a large population that are in this. I mean, some of our correctional facilities are looking like nursing homes, um, basically.
They really are. And here's the thing: there has been medical respite policies in place, but they are not being utilized. One person was granted medical respite in the last 20 years. One person. And it makes no sense when you have all these individuals and facilities, and then also with the parole board does not grant people parole at a rate that is conducive to decreasing the prison population.
Yeah, that's interesting.
They're prior to COVID, so around 2019, 2020, um, they were roughly they started streaking up to grantal rates. During COVID, they were granting people parole at the rate roughly about 61%. All right. Now, this is when everybody's supposed to be isolated and like stay away from each other. They're granting people parole 61%. Since COVID ended, their parole grantal rate has dropped down significantly and hovers around about 41%. So they're not letting people out. People that have long incarcerations are so they're I happen to sit on a parole hearing of a guy who's a friend of mine who hasn't had a single disciplinary infraction in the facility for his entire 15 years that he was incarcerated. Got a bachelor's in theology from Appalachian Bible College. He is the campus pastor at St. Mary's. He's in the barber college to become a licensed barber. He had a home plan taking him out the area where he committed his offense to a new area with a house, had two jobs waiting on him, develop a mentorship program within the facilities, has had an exemplary record, and he was denied parole.
Yeah.
And so when you have people that meet every marker that we tell them that we want you to meet to show your rehabilitation, to show you're different from when you were incarcerated, and then we still don't let them out and they meet all that criteria, there's something wrong with that. Which is why, like the second look policy, even in some cases, when it advances to medical respite need, it's necessary because we're not letting those individuals out that really can contribute to society, and
Right.
we're just keeping them in.
Right. Yeah. I didn't know that it had dropped that much, the parole rate. Um, that's quite a bit of people that's coming before the board, and um, that have good records, and they're just not being allowed to go out. And I know that they have to be very cautious about that, um, there's definitely some inconsistencies and contradictions. There's no question about that. And I want anyone that feels free to just jump in here. If you have any comments, if you're also aware of individuals, friends, or families that have petitioned, they've been granted, they reached the eligibility for parole, and they've gone before the board and have been denied numerous times. I mean, feel free to just jump in, unmute yourself, because that's a pretty low rate. But
Yeah.
for all we know, it could be there's just they're all justified. We really don't know. Um, we really can't judge that based on just that percentage. It's probably not fair to the board because all these cases will vary from one year to another. Um, I would like to speak to those who are providing drug treatment, that have drug addiction treatments. There's some bills that's being circulated, and I'm kind of curious about some of this. Um, there's there's a bill, it's 4662, but there's also a bill in 5104, and it's requiring drug treatment. There's supposedly there's supposed to be some type of a drug treatment pilot program um, under West Virginia Code 6215A, and there's a Senate bill that would repeal that pilot program. It's 862 is the bill number. That would repeal it, but apparently there's supposed to be something already in place that they're repealing. Um, it says that the Secretary of the Department of Military Affairs shall establish a program to provide addiction treatment to persons who are offenders within the criminal justice system, um, that are that sections to be participants in the program because of their dependence on opioids. Um, and the department may limit the number of participants. I'm just curious if there's any that know if that program was even started.
What,
Or
who is doing the program, John?
this is under the Department of Military Affairs and Public Safety. They are over corrections. As you know, the the Division of Corrections and Rehabilitation is within the Department of Military Affairs. And it says that the department um, shall establish this program for those who are in the criminal justice system, which would be, of course, DCR, that they are to have a addiction treatment pilot program. And I can't remember when this was implemented in law, but there's a bill now in circulation that would repeal it. I'm just curious if anyone here dealing with drug treatment knows that such a program was ever implemented.
Unless you have a name of a program, I don't. I mean, I know Thursday at the Recovery Advocacy Day, uh, there that on Thursday in the reception, there was a program that was introduced, but I don't know if that is the program that you're speaking of.
Yeah,
Uh,
it says here the Division of Corrections shall select persons within its custody who are determined to be high risk use um, of various drugs. It says here LS/CMI. Can anyone tell me what that means? If they
Yeah,
there's some type of an assessment criteria?
the LSCMI, I believe, is Jonathan, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't this the goal, basically the goals program
I
that
was
they
going to
had
say that, Kenny,
in the
because
regionals?
goals had really taken over a lot of the RSAT, and that's me
Yeah,
leaving in the end of 23. I was in Town Correctional Center, for example. They no longer, I'm not going to say this for exact 100%, but from what I have heard, they no longer, I was practically one of the last, uh, I guess, units to do RSAT, and they've really adopted goals. And from just word of mouth, all goals is a lot of workbooks um, at their own pace, and then you have they really brought in medically assisted treatment um, with the Sublocade injection. Now at that particular facility, but yeah, that's what I was thinking. Was the goals program? It's kind of taken over all of the substance use. Uh,
The LICSM, it's a classification system within DCR. It also
yeah,
expresses their areas of behavioral where they're at, also security levels, whether it's minimum, maximum. So basically, it's a classification system acronym that they use.
yeah.
and the
Every inmate will
LSCMI
get
is really outdated.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
other
it is.
classification criterias that aren't included within the LSCMI, and the scoring of it is really horrible, actually. But along with that bill has only one sponsor, Morris, which I don't think you're talking about the Senate bill, Robert Sylvia, and I don't
Yeah.
think that is going to move because there's been a lot of senators and delegates that sing the praise of the goals program and RSAT programs within the facilities that are not going to let them go away. One, it brings in money into the facilities because that's one avenue of funding that the facilities can get, and because also federal dollars are being allotted to those type of programs. So they're not going to get rid of those programs.
Okay.
It would
Kenny,
have
can
to
I
be.
add something? I'm so
Mhm.
sorry. My name's Jessica. I work with Kisra. This is my first time on the meeting. Thank you for having me. I'm currently in the facilities at South Central and Southern Regional. And if an incarcerated individual opts out of, like, if I go meet with them for our programming and the things that we're doing, and they are denied parole or anything, they'll go into the goals program. It's like a 8 or 10 week program, self-paced is what I've been told. I don't know much about it yet, but we can't like cross-reference any of the resources. So if they choose to go into the goals program, then the facility will not let them like meet with us or work with us moving forward. So what I do is I'm just a the liaison between like a facility and recovery point through a federal grant. But they help them with housing plans and employment options and all the necessary like basic things that they need when they get out, IDs, birth certificate, all that kind of stuff, and help them set that up. But if they opt out of or they opt into the goals program, then we can't meet with them anymore because they push that program so hard is the point I'm trying to make.
Okay. So, I mean, I'm just, I'm not familiar what's going on within in this area, but I mean, is it, because when I read the bill, I mean, the bill just simply says repeal it. So does that mean that Kenny, maybe you can speak to it, but I'm glad to hear that it's likely not going to be even heard. But was this bill trying to actually get rid of the goals program? I mean, is that what you were understanding?
From my understanding of it is that the pilot version made because they had to put it in legislative code to set up the pilot program. All
Okay.
right. The pilot program now is really kind of a full program. It's no longer a pilot.
Okay.
And they've already had reports on what the goals program is doing, like the commissioner, DCR,
Okay.
came in and spoke to them about the goals program. Several other individuals have spoken about the goals program. So I don't even think they consider it a pilot anymore.
Okay.
I know that there's legislative members that are talking about expanding it to other facilities.
Okay.
And so I think it's getting rid of the code that establishes that particular pilot program, but not getting rid of the program, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
So it's probably what they're just getting rid of language that's in code, but it's no longer a pilot program. Therefore, they wouldn't be getting rid of what is in place and that has probably been effective and has become ingrained within the culture of the DCR.
That's how I interpreted it. Sorry to jump in. My name's Kaylee. I'm an attorney with Legal Aid.
Okay.
If they're repealing just the pilot program, it's possible they have people who are employed and designated to focus only on the pilot. And without repealing that, it's possible people can't go to work in the full-time program, or there's funding that's being split between a pilot and a full-time, full-blown program. I'm hoping that's the case.
Right.
I'd have to
That's the
dive
way
into
I
it
read it.
more. Yeah, so the language being focused on the pilot, I think that's important and that's good. Um, you don't want to have a pilot operating at the same time as a fully functioning program, just in the code and funding wise either. I'm agreeing as well that I've only had clients who have told me about the RSAT program. I'm sure I'll see a new wave of clients mentioning goals, but I will say most of what I do is expungement, and the judges that I have put petitions for expungement in front of have recognized RSAT as an important program. I'm hopeful that that will stay. I'll be happy to put my contact information in the chat. But I had a really tough expungement case that was borderline argued to be violent, argued to be against public welfare. And I think RSAT was a really helpful tool in pushing that case across the finish line. So I'm hopeful that those things stay in place. They're good
Kaylee,
for
what's
reentering.
Kaylee, what's the RSET? Can you is that a
Yeah,
acronym?
it
It's
sounds to me like
residential.
it's substance abuse treatment. It sounds like it's actually a little outdated, which I don't have current tabs on it. I just take the information that's relayed to me for participants of it who were released from it. But my clients who have told me about RSAT, they were chosen to be in a group who were released for a work release-ish adjacent type of program, receiving recovery treatment as well. They maintain their recovery very, very well upon release. The clients that I've seen are really some of my stronger cases were my clients who went through RSAT, and I'm assuming goals now. The most recent I've seen somebody, I was just checking my files. I have a client who went through RSAT and was released in 2022. So probably in the last 4 years, things have shifted. I'm hoping for the better. It sounds like it's positive. But RSAT was really important to what they were telling me about, and something that they highlight when they're telling me about their recovery and their rehabilitation efforts. It also, the clients I've had, they were kind of leaders in a group. I had someone who was in the first RSAT unit, who was sent to another facility to operate a pilot type program in that facility. He spoke very highly of the program, and I take that a lot into account when I get positive feedback for a corrections based program from my clients, that it's meaningful, or that it was meaningful in the way it was operating then.
Right.
But
Okay.
that's
Kenneth,
my
did
small
you?
little input. The way I'm reading the bill is that it may not ruin everything that's in place now. It really might be one of those nitpicky language things where you don't want outdated law sitting there and someone saying, hey,
Yeah, I
there's
think
supposed
that's
to be a pilot. Nobody's doing a pilot anymore. Why are we funding
right.
this? I'm
Yeah,
hoping
so
that's the case.
it's clean up. That's what, yeah. I was just, Kenneth, I don't know if you had more, looked like you were trying to get some input as well.
Well, a couple things. RSAT again stands for Residential Substance Abuse Treatment. It's
Okay.
been around since the early 2000s when the federal government basically told West Virginia that we have to update our way that we rehabilitate our inmates, and that's why the policy, and of course it was implemented. RSAT itself is still decent to have, and again, it has its benefits with individuals with substance use disorder. But the problem with RSAT, two things. One is it does not stay up to date with the structure of how substance use treatment and recovery services are now delivered today. Still kind of stuck in the past, right? It doesn't update its curriculum. And then on top of it, the correctional officers usually run the RSAT programs, which bless their heart, we appreciate that. But a lot of them don't have substance use disorder treatment themselves. But on the flip side, it is a decent curriculum to help rehabilitate individuals that are justice involved. And it also helps certain individuals to get peer hours so that they can kind of be employable when they get on the outside, because you can have an officer or a case manager sign off on those. But again, it's give or take. It's what we have. It's better than nothing, but it really could use some updates.
Okay. That's interesting. That's interesting. There's um there's another bill, and this is something it'd be probably a good idea. It's it's House Bill 5104. Um it would a probationer or parolee has been when a probationer or parolee has been determined by a standardized risk and needs assessment um, to have a history of substance abuse, he or she shall participate in the appropriate support service for a minimum of 60 days on a schedule approved by the probation or parole officer. Um, this is this is introduced. None of these, the ones that I'm mentioning, none of them have gone beyond introduction level, but it's still relatively kind of early in the legislative process. But so I guess this is something that I don't know how this would work, where a parole officer could assign somebody. I don't know how they would determine whether they're at risk or when that happens, and that they would require them to go into a drug treatment program, especially since if you're out on parole and you did something that violates your parole, I guess instead of putting you back in the jail, they would, Kaylee, does that sound how it probably would work? That instead of they give you the option, go into a program or go back to jail?
I don't know if it sounds like an option to go into a program if you violate your parole. It sounds to me like it would be upon release, you're required to be enrolled into a minimum 60-day program. Um, so I believe that's at the outset that they would place you into some kind of treatment or service. I'm I don't know if there would be an additional protection for violation. I mean, relapse is sometimes part of recovery, right? And so if you're in a program and you relapse, maybe there's some additional protections where they can adjust your course of treatment. Whereas if you're in a standard living situation and you have a relapse, screen for parole and you fail, I mean, there's a high probability they're going to charge you with a parole violation. So maybe that does give some extra protection, or at least some tools upon release to not face many parole violations. But I'm not reading it as it's really super extensive. I think there's probably some positives and negatives that could come of it, some implications either way.
Yeah, I was just
60
kind of
days
trying
is
to,
good. We
yeah,
look at 90 days in a certified treatment program to qualify for reduced expungement time frame. So I like to see 90 days myself. That's what the law asks for in certain reentry type codes, but I think it's that they would be released. I would worry about availability of a bed. If you are determined to need this type of treatment for parole and there's not a placement available to you, will you be released or not? I would have a question about that. But I think it could go either way. I think it could probably use some expanding when we're looking at how it's actually going to be implemented. But I don't think this is a negative step in my personal opinion. I think
it's
I would worry
probably,
about that parole violation type implication though in the placement and the availability of a treatment program that's approved by parole.
yeah,
Um,
it's kind of,
I
it's
have questions. Yeah.
to me, it's kind of the way it's worded is kind of a little bit confusing. It's like if you've been granted parole and then you're determined at risk of relapsing, that when you come out, you're going to be going into a program as soon as you're released. I'm wondering if that's how it's worded.
That's how I
Or
read it. It also says shall, which means you must
right,
participate in this if you're determined to need it.
right,
Again, that could go either way too. Is that a positive thing or not? Um,
because
because
it's
my concern is that if you opt out of this program or you're removed from the treatment facility for any reason, then
right,
you're in violation of your parole already. It says
right,
you shall participate for at least 60 days. If you don't hit that 60 days, is that considered a violation of your parole? I would be concerned about that.
yeah. Because what it says is when a probationer or parolee, that means someone who has been granted, parole or probation. Um, so yeah, it just kind of, and they are individuals who are within the DCI at the point. So, yeah, so that's good that it sounds as though it's a positive, it is a positive movement. Yeah,
Yeah, I think it could be. I would like to see it kind of fleshed out a little bit of how they're going to implement it. Um, and if there are some adverse um, outcomes for people who don't participate or don't have a bed available to them upon the release. But, it could just be this is something that can be expanded on. I don't think at the way it's added and it's one section added into this existing code, right? So any kind of mention of certified treatment, I think is at least acknowledging that this is a realistic need.
right, right,
I think we take the steps we can, but I worry about those violations and how you could end up with more opportunities for a parole violation. Um, I would hate to see somebody punished for going into the program that it says they must go into.
right.
But we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, that I guess I understand what you're saying now that's a sticking point. If they've been granted parole and there's a condition or it's not even a condition of parole, it's the parole officer's judgment saying, hey, you're at risk, you've been granted parole, but I'm going to require you to go into a treatment program. So you're already been granted parole, and if you fail the program for whatever reason, I guess, it's up to the parole officer could say that's a violation of your parole, I guess. Yeah, so, but I think overall, to me, I agree with you. It's probably a positive bill, and um,
Are,
so that,
are are there any recovery coaches involved in this process?
um, it says
It
Recovery
doesn't
coaches can
seem,
help with guide, how when people are
yeah,
yeah,
it says go
it,
ahead, Kenny.
it doesn't seem, from my understanding of it, there is no kind of like independent, outside individuals, involved in the process of like the assessments and, um, other than like their LSCMI scores and potentially their criminal history or things that they self-disclose as the reason why they would be assessed to that. And to Kaylee's point, it would be something that could potentially cause an increase in parole violations because there's a lot of different reasons why someone might not complete a program, right? And and depending on the program as well, um, there is a there may be just differences of in, differences of opinion and life choices that would allow someone to not successfully, according to parole standards, complete a program. It doesn't mean that they've relapsed or that they're not participating in their reentry to the fullest. They may, an individual may say, well, this program doesn't fit with me, but it's the only program that I can go to, kind of thing. And the problem that we see is that a lot of times people will, especially when they're incarcerated, say whatever they need to say in order to get released from incarceration.
Right.
And we have there's a huge issue, which is why one of the bills that we've tried to get introduced the past couple years is a transitional housing bill for those that don't have a substance use disorder or have been so long in recovery while they were incarcerated that being in a program is no longer a viable option and is really not necessary. But because there is no funding for transitional housing and there is a shortage of places where people can go, you have individuals that really have maintained years of recovery while in the facility saying, I need to go to a rehab. And then they get there and they do what they need to do initially to get some movement. And then they get a job and they say, well, I no longer need to be here because I have a job now. I need to go. But the program won't let them leave. And so they end up getting a technical violation for leaving the program when it's really not necessary for them.
Right.
So I would really like to see people with this type of thing having, recovery coaches, having clinicians involved in really
Right.
doing assessments as to whether or not the person needs to go into a program versus some other options that may be available for them.
Hey, James, and the way the bill is written, it says that if it's been determined by a standardized risk and needs assessment that's adopted by the Supreme Court of Appeals of West Virginia under 62-12-6D. So there's something already in code that lists that has like a risk and needs assessment. I don't know if it's written in code, and I don't know if anyone else needs
I meant more the whole process that they're talking about. Or the process is just a risk assessment. I mean, you were saying something about a probation officer placing people in a facility,
Right.
and
Right.
there are over 15 different approaches to recovery.
Right.
We have currently 280 recovery residences in West Virginia, not counting the more medical facilities. There are people who are trained to help somebody find the program that is the best fit, that know all the options. The probation officer, if they're working with them, like which they would in, say, a drug board.
Right.
The question is, in this part of the process, are recovery coaches involved who could help navigate the system?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question, and
It wouldn't necessarily be written into the bill. I just don't know if there are any. Does Kisra? Do you all have recovery coaches or?
Is Kisra, Jessica, are you there? Well, I don't know.
This is Kristen. I'm from Kisra as well, and we don't we have someone who's working on a recovery coach certification at this time, but we don't have anyone at this time.
Okay. So I mean,
There are many organizations. Southern Highlands Community Mental Health Centers have their reentry liaison programs, Jobs and Hope. You have the Reach Initiative. So there's a lot of organizations that's specific to that.
And are they part of this process?
They should be,
They could
but I
be.
can tell you they're probably not.
They're not a part of the process as it is now, but they would be, like, especially with the Reach Initiative, Jobs and Hope, they need
Yeah.
to be really integral parts of
And
the
First Choice Services also have their reentry
Oh,
liaisons as well. So, yeah,
Yeah.
So First Choice is involved in this?
should be, but they're not.
Is
Ah,
line,
okay.
so the only department outlined in that code, and if you look at 6112.6 that outlines the assessment, that assessment is designed for use by probation officers, supervised by DOC. So it really only requires that it's used and implemented by probation
Right.
and the facility and their staff. I
But
assume the assessment, it says it's confidential, but it's used and designed for correctional officers. I would say any other liaisons involved would need to be, it's optional, I think, the way that it's
It'd
written
be
right now.
voluntary.
Need voluntary.
Yeah.
I'm the Jobs and Hope attorney. The liaisons, they're fantastic. I have no doubts that people will push to be involved in the transition of people into these treatment programs. But the way the law is written, it would not be required that anybody else is involved other than probation and parole.
Right. Yeah. Well, we're running out of time, and I um, I dispensed with introductions mainly because I knew we would have a lot of discussions on some of these things. Um, I just want to real quickly, and then Kenneth, if there's anything that that's really significant that that is moving or that you want to speak to. But let me just say there's a bill that would it's a House Bill 4898. It would require the DCR to provide birth certificates for those for those incarcerated. Not sure when. It's 4898. It says um, that shall provide each probationer a physical copy. So this is upon their release, as if they're going under probation, that they have to receive their birth certificate, a physical copy, um, or the Social Security card upon release from the DCR. I thought that they were already doing that with respect to Social Security cards, um, but that's added new language. The other thing, and I don't really understand this quite honestly, and maybe you all can speak to it, but there's a bill. This doesn't even make sense to me, but it's a bill that it says it's House Bill 4662. It says that if a person who is incarcerated um, is found in possession of illegal drugs or tests positive for the use of illegal drugs, that uh, there are penalties that can be added on to their current sentence. If their first offense could add 6 months to their sentence, a second offense could add a year, and then a multiple offense, um, this I guess higher penalties. I don't know, but first I'm having a problem with the fact that um, not supposed to be drugs in DCI.
Yeah.
Well,
Um,
and to
and
be clear,
I,
it's not could. It's not they could face these penalties. It's they
they
shall,
would.
will.
Right,
Yeah.
They already can. You can already
right.
be charged with possession of a controlled substance in a facility as an inmate. You can be charged with this already. Now it's a requirement, and there are strict sentencing guidelines for it.
So
Um,
you so
that's
you're
a
saying
neg
you're saying that
it's
yeah,
shall.
it's definitely shall provision, but it's something that I guess has been going on and it's been discretionary.
Yeah, you can be charged with additional offenses while you're incarcerated. Do I agree with it?
Yeah.
There shouldn't be access to things like this, right? But you can be charged with these things. I have several clients charged with possession of a controlled substance as an inmate or a contraband charge. But
Wow.
now it's requiring that if you are caught, from what I'm reading, in possession of a controlled substance or illegal drugs, it doesn't even outline exactly what they're talking about. then you must be sentenced, is how I'm reading it and interpreting it. It's stricter. It's not discretionary. It will add some more work to the justice system that I don't know is necessary. I can't speak. I can't be involved in
Well,
legislative activities in my job, but I think you're on track with what you're thinking.
and
Okay.
here's the thing with this bill. One, like you said, Kaylee and Reverend Sylvia, is that it's a shall provision. Currently in DCR policy in the Rule 325 DCR policies, there's class 1 and class 2 rule violations for um, either failing a drug test or being in possession of contraband or a controlled substance. If it's a class rule 1 violation for possession of an illegal substance, that is a substance that is considered illegal within society, then you can be, but it's not necessarily true. You can be charged with an outside charge that will add time to your sentence, or they can keep it an institutional rule violation and take away good time for you. With this
Okay.
bill is guaranteed you're going to get an
Yeah.
outside charge,
Yeah.
and it could be for substances that is not illegal on the street but is illegal within the confines of a correctional
Yeah.
facility.
I just see a lot of negatives to that. I really do. Um, that's like the DCR is not doing their job to make sure that these things aren't happening, but then they're going to penalize those who take advantage of it. You know, their failures, and so I don't know. Just to me, a lot of negatives, and I can see it happening. I don't know how drugs get in. I'm sure I know it's happening. You know, I'm not going to even think about.
Well, from an aspect of somebody who's been in several facilities within West Virginia and know their policies on like visitation and as well as mail policies, they restrict the mail, right? Even just this past couple of weeks, Huttonsville had an issue where the tablets weren't working because they had a flood in the basement of the facility. So they didn't have phones or tablets. They still didn't allow physical mail into the facilities. They just said you had to wait until the tablets came back online to receive mail, kind of thing. What the advent of the tablets, they've restricted even legal mail from being physical mail. All right. Visits are super restrictive. In some facilities, there is no face-to-face contact visit. It's all behind glass, so there's no physical contact. You're strict search prior to going to the visit and after you get out of the visit. They've restricted the means and access for the traditional methods of getting contraband into a facility, that there's only really a couple logical reasons how contraband gets into facilities,
Yeah.
and they're not really talking about those reasons.
Yeah.
And until those reasons are really actually dealt with, then you're still going to have instances where people receive this contraband and stuff
Okay.
like that.
Yeah.
And so this bill is going to want penalize a whole bunch of people that suffer from a substance use disorder, that aren't getting adequate help, and are, while yes, they're engaging in bad behavior, but other outside actors are
Yeah.
engaging in bad
Right.
behavior that allows them to
Right.
uh, really target these individuals.
Right. Right. Well, Kenny, is there any other bills that we haven't talked about, or anything that you think, because we're running out of time here?
Yeah,
And
there's Senate Bill 736 that was introduced. It is requiring the DMV to give people state issued IDs prior to release. It is
which is what they're supposed to be
effectively,
doing for the longest time.
yeah. The DMV last year actually came and talked to House and Senate Judiciary Committees and said, "Hey, you guys tell us to do this, we'll do it." Right? We'll figure out the implementation, figure out the logistics wise, because a lot of the pushback was, well, how would this work? How do people get the IDs and all this type of stuff? There's several states that have mobile units that go to correctional facilities and they'll get the IDs made for the individuals that are getting released. And the reentry coordinators in the facilities are supposed to be getting all the documentation already ready for people, like
Right.
the social security card, birth certificate that they would need to have these IDs.
Right.
So there's a lot of pressure within the legislature from several members of the legislature to get this bill actually passed and
Oh,
implemented into policy,
okay.
because they know that when people get released, one of the main things that they're having difficulty doing, and Jonathan can attest to this with the Reach Initiative, is getting a valid state ID so then they can
Right.
get a job,
Right.
get bank
Right.
accounts, get housing, and all that
Right.
stuff.
Okay.
That is one of our main grants. That's one of the main things that we do is we help individuals get an ID or help them get their driver's license back as well.
Right. And that's so important. I mean, that's incredibly important. We just can't overestimate the value of that. But let me ask if there's anyone, this is your first time on this particular reentry council, if you maybe just briefly introduce yourself and if there's anyone that would like to present their program or in next month in March or May, I have already April is committed to Kenny. Um, but is there any? I know that there was Jessica. I think you were first time, and Kaylee, is this your first time?
Um, many years ago, I attended a meeting.
Okay.
I'm on the Behavioral Health Planning Council, and as you might guess, I'm a peer support specialist. But
Okay.
the Planning Council is involved a lot in reentry stuff right now, and I'm trying to catch up with it. I've been getting your emails for years,
Right.
but I haven't been able to attend the meeting.
I got you. Well, we're glad to have you on with us, James. If this is not, or if this is your first time, but yeah, there's so much reentry is so tied up with substance
Yeah.
abuse treatment. It's just they're tied to the hip, so to speak. So, and Kaylee, is this your first time?
I find it hard to keep track. I recently shifted from our medical legal recovery law program to Jobs and Hope. And in becoming the attorney for Jobs and Hope through legal aid, my counties went from 7 to 55.
Oh,
And so I
wow.
try to attend. I have every region recurring on my calendar. And the ones I'm able to attend, I like to pop in and see what's happening in each region because, I'm from Parkersburg. I work out of our Parkersburg office when I'm in office. I travel a decent amount, but it's hard to keep track of what's going on in every region where I have clients and partners and connections. So these are really, really helpful. My dad has worked with Bev Sharp for a very long time on different councils and things. So when I got connected, I was excited. Jonathan sees me pop up in random little counties here and there when
Yeah.
I'm able. And so I believe I've been to one of this group's a while back, but I'm very hit or miss. So I will be here as soon as, if it pops up and I'm available on my calendar, I love to attend.
Well, we're
Um, and
glad
I'm glad to be here.
you gave us quite a bit of good input, and we really appreciate your
Well, I
presence.
hope I didn't speak out of turn
No,
or anything here.
no, not at all, not at all.
It was a really great topic though, and I
And
enjoyed
so
it a
you're
lot.
now you are the attorney for Jobs and Hope.
I'm an attorney for Legal Aid of West Virginia, but all
Okay.
of my clients are through a partnership with Jobs and Hope. So I only
Okay.
serve clients who are referred to me by Jobs and Hope,
Okay.
which means all of my clients are active or recent graduates of their program.
Okay.
It's a great client base. I love it. It's really great connections, and a lot of what I do is clinic based. I do a lot of outreach, but also have, a full client load as well. They're a really great program, and I'm enjoying it a lot. It's been about a year since I switched to Jobs and
Okay. Very good. Anyone else? First time or if you're interested in presenting next month. I forgot to put my email address in. I think some of you should know my address by now, but if you're interested, please just contact Jonathan. You can contact me if you have my email address. So I think we're done here, and sorry for going over a little bit, but thank you so much, Kenny, for assisting us, and Kaylee and James and Kenny, Jordan. Really appreciate all your expertise. You guys are out there in the grassroots. Benjamin, thank you for your assistance as well. Y'all have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next month, March the 11th, second Wednesday in March, 10 a.m. All right, we'll see y'all.
Thank you.
John, I think there was one smaller region I did a presentation for before about legal aid and what we do. I've had another group ask for a presentation about expungement and reentry
Oh, wow.
implications. I do expungement clinics every other week. So
That would be good.
I'd be happy to do something like that if you ever need to fill a gap.
Why don't we do it? Because we haven't had we had an expungement seminar,
Okay.
but it's been years. I mean, when the first one passed, so it's been that long, but we haven't had anything since. And I think it would be good if you're available on March the 11th. I think that would be an ideal time, as you can see if your schedule
I
allows that.
am. Yeah, I usually hold my Wednesdays to be in the office. So your council works out really nicely.
Great, great.
So I
So
will make a
I'll
note.
put you in, and again, your Kaylee, Alan.
Yes.
Let me make sure that I have your information.
Yeah, we can talk about logistics of amount of
Okay.
time and exactly what people are looking for. I just did an expungement clinic that I actually shifted for the West Virginia Coalition Against Domestic Violence. They wanted to know how expungement could help survivors of domestic violence with independence. And so I'm always happy to kind of frame them in a certain way, but generally for reentry, expungement is a really nice tool to be aware of. So I
Okay.
could really give a pretty general presentation.
Okay. Well, that will work.
Okay.
And I just put my information in the chat as well. So anyway, that'd be good. I'll put you down for that, and we'll look forward to hearing from you next month.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right. All right, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you.
Thank you.